So I know some of the listeners are waiting for me to bring this up because I've done it a lot in conversations with people. And I know you're a Formula One guy because I've seen photos of you at Silverstone and at Monza. So I'm sure you're aware of all the buzz of how viewership numbers have just skyrocketed. Fandom has exploded, especially here in the United States. Now, when I kind of like outlined sort of what the factors are at play here, I came down to the storytelling with Netflix obviously helped build stories and rivalries. The sport's effective social media use with the teams and the drivers. Each of the Grand Prix is a huge weekend event. The telecasts were easy to access. And obviously, the race quality improved. So that's kind of like what we're hoping to see in track and field. I'm curious how and what can track and field do to replicate that F1 success? Because if we can do this with cars, like, right, like, and drivers, why can't we do this with people racing?
You're right about Formula One. I've got great friends in the US who, if they were watching anything of an automotive nature, it was probably NASCAR. They might occasionally, seen a news clip, on ESPN or whatever it was about, a Formula One win. But I've now got friends who, off the back of having watched Drive to Survive, are now around Formula One. And look, there's no question to me that, yeah, you're right. You can't just pluck one element out of that sort of multifactorial set of reasons why a sport suddenly starts to take off. And social media is hugely important. Broadcast is important. I think the access to the drivers, actually, the ability to wander down a grid lane with a camera and talk to drivers, even if they're a bit preoccupied, it sort of brings the drivers and the fans close to each other. I think COVID has helped do that. I noticed in our own sport that everybody seemed to feel that they were in the same boat together. Athletes were doing things that were incredibly creative. Our Ultimate Garden Challenge, 3 top-ranked pole vaulters all competing against each other in their own back gardens across different time zones, all achieved on 3 iPhones. And I think that when we come to broadcasting, broadcasters have recognized that they have to go beyond live now. The Monaco Grand Prix was run on Sky TV in the UK during lockdown. The 1996 Monaco Grand Prix, it had over 2 million viewers. So, I think broadcasters and federations have learned to plunder their archives, recognize you do have to go beyond that. And I think when it comes to broadcast, I think rights holders are going to be a lot more critical and ask a great deal more of broadcasters. Broadcasters can still be quite conservative. I think, that's one of the challenges. But all those things are things that we're working on in athletics. We've just signed an extension to our EBU contract, European Broadcast Union. It deals with our broadcast arrangements in Europe. It also deals with our arrangements in Africa, which is important to us. And an element of that renegotiation is till 2029. And, with a good, keep my financial teams happy, a good healthy uplift. Part of that new contract will involve some creative work around a similar type documentary to help the fans get behind, the performances, get closer to the athletes. And look, this is not going to be without its challenges. I know from my friends and my commercial work in Formula One that the drivers and the team lead, the team bosses were not that open at the time to a documentary that would have cameras in the faces and watching the response when, a driver leaves the track or some of the interchanges on the radio, but it brought a new dimension. And I know there are people who wouldn't have crossed the road to watch Formula One who are now building their days around it. And that's you. I mean, You're one of them. So the storytelling is important. Everybody says, oh, it's about storytelling. Of course it's about storytelling, but storytelling means that you have to have access to people. You can't just do that in a sort of academic, well, here's the story, guys, just print it. you need to have the emotional connection with between the fans and the competitors. And I think that's what Formula One has done well. And that's certainly what athletics is going to be focusing on in the coming years.